Hey guys, welcome back to my style challenge. So, rather than changing characters, I stuck with Daru, who is the main character of my comic called Dragon Spirit. I haven't officially posted it yet, but you can read some old iterations on my DeviantArt and keep up with new progress on Facebook. I'll do a bit more talking for each style of this video, so let's get to it. The first style is based on Iwerk's original cartoons. If you don't know, he's the guy who worked with Disney when Disney was first starting, so he kind of set like the trend for the Disney style cartoons way back in like the 20s and 30s. It wasn't too hard to do this style. It was actually kind of a lot of fun, and it was more about like thinking like, okay, well, this was before rotoscoping, so it's kind of noodly. It's a lot of fun, a lot of circles, lots of black shapes, and I really enjoyed this one. I didn't actually think it through when I made those lines right there that aren't completely closed off, so I had to do some selecting, and that's not really practical for a cartoon. But at the same time, I liked how it looked, and it kind of matched the style, so I just kind of went with it.
Eyes in the sky, gazing far into the night. I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you, for you, for you, for you, for you, won't you let the light shine through?
Next up is Sailor Moon. So, as you'll see, I struggled a lot with this one. It was mostly in the legs because their legs are really long in the Sailor Moon style, and I really had to push through and kind of find an acceptable solution for how like the legs and the feet went together, because to me they just look like tube. So I kind of drew Daru with this like super unimpressed face, because I don't think she'd like being drawn this way in the comic, just because it's so girly, I guess you could say. So I wanted to focus on her personality when I was doing the style challenge and kind of mix up the poses a little more. I think with any character that you draw, you should focus on their personality. Even when they're just doing something like shrugging, like everybody shrugs differently, so it's kind of it's just a personality thing that I wanted to play with and kind of show you guys what her personality is. It's kind of why I drew her with a couple of really silly faces in the Sailor Moon one, because, you know, she just wouldn't be impressed. She's just probably looking at me like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Please stop doing this to me. So the thing with this particular style, with the Sailor Moon style, is that I didn't grow up watching a lot of anime. So it was really weird for me to do a style with a type of anime that I'd never really watched before. I mean, the only animes I watched growing up were like Digimon, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And I didn't even know those were anime until like high school. I didn't know what anime was. I grew up with PBS, bro. So doing this shoujo style was really kind of throwing me off, and I'm not particularly fond of this style, but I thought it would be a really good challenge, and as you can see, it was a great challenge. I struggled. I should stop calling this the style challenge and just call this the struggle challenge, because I do a lot of that when I do these things. At the same time, I'm kind of enjoying it and I like pushing myself, so I'm gonna keep doing this to myself. So as for the Disney style, I mostly look to movies with Glenn Keane, like things that he worked on, because he was kind of a lead animator in a lot of like the Disney Renaissance stuff, especially for things like the Disney princess movies. And I think the last one he worked on was Tangled, and that's one of my favorite movies, so that was a lot of kind of the things that I looked at. Mostly for this one, I looked at like Beauty and the Beast and the way that like Belle was drawn. So I really wanted to capture the fluidity of his drawings. So if you look at Glenn Keane's gesture drawings, they're all very, very fluid, and I wanted to try to capture that in at least the gesture of this particular pose and style. And I think I did that fairly efficiently. It's a lot of curves. I don't draw with curves, I draw with angles. So it was a good mix up for me. The thing that really killed me about this was the lips, because I never ever draw lips on characters, hardly ever. Like, you know, it's just a little anime lip line, but not actually full blown lips. So that was a good challenge, and I actually really liked the way that that turned out, especially because she's kind of reacting to the Sailor Moon one, like, why? Why is this a thing? But Feminine Daru looks pretty good, I have to say, so I might kind of implement that more into my style, maybe. Maybe. So something else about the Disney style is that in the more recent 2D films, the lines all have like color about them. Lilo and Stitch, Beauty and the Beast, Pocahontas, like all of the like Renaissance films all have that colored line. I can't say the same about the old films from like the 50s, but I know for a fact that the more recent ones do. So I tried to do that same thing and stay true to the style. So what I did was I just made a clipping mask for the layer above the line art layer and just kind of colored the lines over it, because a clipping mask only affects the pixels of the layer below it. So if you have a clipping mask only affect one layer, it's really useful, and it's a good way for when you want to get shading done and you've got all your base colors done in a clean fashion. So, with this Dragon Ball Z one, I was kind of on the fence. I loved the idea of doing a Super Saiyan Daru, but I don't think there's any Super Saiyan girls in Dragon Ball Z, and if there are, I can't think of any. So I kind of wanted to stay more true to like the style that the girls are drawn in for the show. So yes, I sketched out the Super Saiyan one, and I might go back and do that because it was kind of fun and kind of funny. But so I went more with, you know, like drawing the girls, and accidentally made a top-down pose. I didn't expect to have to do any foreshortening, but I mean, the best accidents are the ones that look good, right? So I kind of went with it. So, you know, pointing and gloves and probably not enough wrinkles. There probably could have been more wrinkles on this one. But I'm pretty happy with how this Dragon Ball Z one turned out, especially because the foreshortening turned out really good, and that's something that I've been struggling with and trying to get better at. So the Danny Phantom style, on the other hand, was kind of harder to achieve than I expected. So there's like really particular ways that the lines are drawn in Danny Phantom, and like where they choose to do curves or where they choose to just make it like a complete shape. So it's kind of weird, and I had to study a bunch of different characters to figure that out. Like the outside lines are thick and the inside lines are thin, and just like where are they using angles versus curves. So it was kind of weird to find out where that kind of thing was happening, but I think I did a pretty good job achieving it. And I didn't actually finish the thick lines until a little bit afterwards. I didn't record that because I figured nobody would care to watch it. It's just me redrawing some lines. The other thing about the Danny Phantom line is kind of like the Disney style, the inside lines are colored too to match what's around them. So I went back and I fixed that. So the Kingdom Hearts style, I really wanted to do a dynamic pose, so I did some sketches for that. Yes, Daru has a sword. I never draw her with the sword, since I don't want her to be defined as a sword-wielding hero. Like, there were so many sword-wielding heroes, and I don't want her to be defined as that because she never really uses her sword. The sword for me in the comic is more of like a character and plot building tool and how it kind of represents a change that she makes. So on top of her having a sword that she never uses, it's completely impractical, which is kind of true to her character because she makes it, she designs it, she can do whatever the heck she wants. And if she's gonna make something impractical, she's gonna be impractical. I mean, she wears yellow, for crying out loud. She can be seen coming from a mile away, and do you know how much she cares? She doesn't. So anyway, with the Kingdom Hearts style, it's one of those styles that really influenced me a lot when I was learning to draw, and I wanted to pay homage to that, especially since I used to draw like Daru and Aaron and all the other characters with like these giant feet and super poofy pants. It was so Kingdom Hearts that it hurt, but those old drawings are the ones that make me push harder to get away from that. So it's kind of funny because I did the Iwerk style, and then I went back and also did Kingdom Hearts, and Kingdom Hearts' Sora is based on like mixing Final Fantasy with Mickey Mouse, so that's why their feet are huge. It's ridiculous, and I love it, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. The other thing with the style is I kind of struggled with that pose so much that I ended up just going with more like that classic falling pose that they use in all the menus, and I think it really paid off. And to match the style a little better, I went in and I added a few more details to the clothes, like the extra lines, and I really like how it ended up looking. The shoes probably aren't big enough, but overall I'm really happy with how this one turned out, especially after I got the shading on it, which I didn't record any of the shading either just because it was pretty basic for most of them, and I just kind of scribbled some stuff in there.
Everything changes.
So recently I got back into watching Teen Titans. I was deprived of cable as a kid, so I never really got to watch it. But man, it's quality TV. Kind of in light of that, I chose to do this style, and it ended up being a lot of fun because there's a lot of different silhouettes for the characters, but I noticed that like with most shows, the girls don't always have completely different shapes to their characters versus the guys, and they'll be like Cyborg and he's like got these huge thick shapes versus Robin who's got these thin shapes versus Beast Boy who's also got thin shapes. But the girls in a lot of shows kind of end up looking alike, and it's not just in Teen Titans, it's like I said, it's in all kinds of shows. So it's kind of hard to distinguish between them. So I kind of, because Daru is more of a tomboy character, I kind of mixed like the shapes that you would get from the girl characters with some of the guy characters. And I kind of wanted to do a really dynamic pose for that one because Teen Titans is an action show, and the action about it is kind of what makes it a lot of fun. The faces are really weird for me to draw because it's kind of anime and it's kind of not anime, and their eyes are really high up on their heads, kind of like Danny Phantom. I don't know what it is about like American cartoons with their eyes being like way up past where their forehead would be. So Tex Avery is the guy who did a lot of old Warner Bros. Cartoons, and it was definitely a big pain in the butt to do his style because it's so shape-based and the shapes are really, really fluid. But this is the guy who invented smear animation, and that's my favorite thing to do when I animate. Like, just the frames where they're smeared out is just the funniest thing. And the first cartoon to do that was Dover Boys, so if you haven't seen the Dover Boys, you should definitely go watch it because it's a really great little cartoon. And it kind of shows, like, the extremes of smear drawing. Like, even Disney movies use smear drawing, and it's great. I love it. It's the most fun to draw the smear drawings. So with the pose from this one, I thought about having Daru use her magic, but it didn't really fit the style, so I kind of threw it out. I think part of the challenge here was that Tex Avery is mostly known for the Looney Tunes, and most of the Looney Tunes characters are animals. So there's, you know, some humans like Granny, but they've all got these crazy shapes and silhouettes, and I wanted to match the style without totally copying any of them, because like all of the like Tex Avery's characters that are humans have like super different, they're all really different, and it's like that's cool because I basically means I can do whatever I want, but at the same time it's like, how do I do whatever I want while also matching the style? So I think most of that ended up being in like the shapes that I chose for Daru and her pose, and the way I drew the hands and the way I drew her face. So it's kind of shorter legs, poofy pants, squishy feet, and classic Looney Tunes eye shape, and I think it really paid off, and I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out. funny enough, SpongeBob's style wasn't a big deal. Like, to do it wasn't actually all that hard. So despite the fact that there are human characters in the show, and the fact that I opted to make Daru a human for Looney Tunes style and not an animal, I ended up going with a fish for SpongeBob because most of the characters are fish, even though there are human characters. I tried to get like more of that animated pose, as you can see, but she ended up looking like a pickle, and I didn't want her to look like a pickle, and most of the characters in SpongeBob are walking or standing, just like raising one arm. So I kind of went with that and matched that part of the style as well, because it is pretty generic most of the time. So the other thing is not a lot of characters wear shoes in SpongeBob. Like, you've got SpongeBob and Mrs. Puff and like the Dutchman and maybe like 4 other characters. So I didn't have a lot to pick from as far as doing shoes. So I kind of went with more of like a Mrs. Puff style shoe. I started with the SpongeBob shaped shoe, but like a lot of the fish that wear shoes, what few fish wear shoes don't wear shoes that look like SpongeBob shoes. So I just picked shape and I went with it, and I think it turned out pretty good. It's kind of weird that they're bright yellow though. I know her shoes are bright yellow, but it was weird to have her be SpongeBob style. I also made her purple because her magic's purple, and that's, you know, complementary colors, bro. So I can't do Disney and I can't do Warner Bros. Without including Fleischer in there. These guys were most known for Popeye, so that's one that I went for. So let me tell you, there's not a lot of girl characters to look at for this one. It's literally like Granny and Olive Oyl. Either way, the Fleischer guys had some really strong key poses for Popeye characters, and I really wanted to get that across. Besides, it's more fun to do a fun pose. I actually really like how this one turned out. Got the face looking right, I got the hands looking right. I mean, it was just goofy and noodly, and they're really thin characters. It's weird because the characters don't have like variety in their body shapes, as far as like, if they're a shape, they're one shape. Their body's gonna be like a tube. Their body's gonna be a circle. So it's not like here, I'm gonna have a few different like hourglassy type shapes. It's like, no, you are flat. So guys, that was the end of my style challenge. I want to thank you so much for sticking with me through this entire video. My next style challenge is going to be comics, and that ranges from everything from printed comics to webcomics. So I'll get started on that soon. So please like, comment, subscribe for more art, and comment to let me know which one of these was your favorite. If you have any suggestions for future styles, please feel free to leave those in the comments. And until then, I'll see you next time.